Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Sri Lanka's head coach, Mickey Arthur. Mickey, how's it going out in Colombo?
It's all good. Thanks, Neil. We've been in curfew for about 8 weeks now. There is some light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's going to be eased on Monday. I'm hearing, but we've heard that for the last couple of weeks. So let's just hope and hopefully we can start getting a mix of our bowling attack back, so we can start building their loads up again. Because we don't know when we're going to play, but if we can, I'm trying to get a little bit of a head start of the rest.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So let's take it all the way back with yourself. So born in Johannesburg, South Africa. Was cricket always in your blood?
Yeah, it was. I only sort of lived the first year of my life in Johannesburg, and then we moved down to Durban. So I like to think I'm a Durban boy. KwaZulu-Natal is kind of where I hail from, and yeah, it was. My dad was instrumental in he ran a cricket team down in Durban there for quite a while. So I kind of grew up on the side of the field watching him play, and obviously I was really interested in it, and worked damn hard at it to try and have a professional career in it.
Yeah, so you went to Westfields High School. Did you also play for a junior club team as well? And when did your talent first get spotted from a playing perspective?
Well, I started off at a primary school. I went to a primary school called Athol Heights, which is part. We lived in the suburb of Westville, which is just outside Durban. So it's it's probably 10-15 minutes inland from the actual coast of Durban. And so I went to a primary school there, and I sort of got recognition at primary school cricket. One of my big bugbears was I just missed out on the Natal primary school side to play in there was a primary under 13 sort of week, and Natal was the state or the province, and I just missed out on that because I was kind of from the sort of unfancied school, if you like, and nobody had really heard of Athol Heights. And then I went from there to Westfield Boys High, a very, very good school, Westfield Boys High. And in South Africa, it's very much the school system where you get taken from, or it was then. So you, even though you sort of played some sort of club cricket, you could only really do that in the holidays, because there was a very good inter-school system in Durban and in South Africa at that time. And very unlike Australia or England, to a point where the young players come through the club system. In South Africa, it's very much you come through the school system. So I went in and sort of played. I played 2 years in Natal schools, which is the senior sort of. I say senior. It's the sort of, I would say, the under-19 carnival, if you like. And then went to did my army training. I was called up to do my army training, and that's how I got to Kimberley, and ended up staying there and playing some professional cricket there.
Yeah, so you're predominantly a batsman.
Yeah, I was an opening batsman.
And then, so you had your time with Orange Free State. You represented, is it Greek Island? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's right. It's Griqualand West. So I started there and then progressed on to play for Free State for 5 years, Orange Free State. And in that time, we had an incredible side. It was captained by, obviously, the late Hansie Cronje, Alan Donald, Corey van Zyl, Omar Henry. We had Rudolph Steyn, all guys that sort of played for South Africa. Nicky Boyer was coming through. Corey van Zyl, who's very involved in South African cricket, was my roommate for 5 years. And we had a really good side that was predominantly Afrikaans dominated, because that was the Orange Free State province, and it was very well known for rugby. Grey High School, it's in Bloemfontein, has produced a massive amount of rugby Springboks, and we ended up changing that sort of philosophy around, and we had an unbelievable 5 years playing for Free State, and very well led by Hansie and our overseas player, because in that time every province had an overseas player, and we had for 3 years we had Franklin Stevenson, the West Indian,
Okay.
Who was unbelievable. And the thing was, it was very that was just before South Africa came back into international cricket. And so the first 3 years of my time with Orange Free State was pre-unity. So every game became like a test match, and then towards the back end of my time with Orange Free State, South Africa got back in 1992, and obviously that was a fantastic time, because then players then it certainly became a very much a free South Africa, which for want of a better word, and it was the first time South Africa was represented as a united country.
So you also represented South Africa A, am I correct in saying?
Yes, I did. I played a couple. I had a couple of tours with South Africa A. Had a couple of games against England A, a very strong England A at that time. So yeah, I did. That was, and to be fair, that was probably the pinnacle of my talent. I was probably just short of international level, but I could hold my own just one step just below. So that was kind of how I made a living for 10 years.
Yeah, so just reading about some stats, you over your career, 6,500 runs, retired in 2001.
Yeah.
So your first opportunity in coaching came with Brick Island. And how did you find that transition from playing to coaching?
It was, I found it as a natural progression for me, because it was always something I wanted to do. I say my degree went back to being cricket. So I always wanted to progress into the coaching world. And I guess I went back to Grick at that point in time in South African cricket, it was a 12-team competition. Grick was a very small union that was very close to my heart. So after doing it, having 5 very good years at Free State, successful years, they wanted me to go back to Grick I went back as like a director of cricket, if you like, but I played and captained for 2 years, and then the coaching job became available. So then it was a natural transition for me. During that time, I coached South Africa A as well, and I spent a winter at the National Academy coaching that. So I was sort of cutting my teeth with that. And then South African cricket, the structure changed, and it went from 12 teams to 6 teams. So there was regional franchises, and the Eastern Cape franchise hired me to go down there and work with them. So I did that for about 18 months, and we had sort of 2 2020 finals in that time. It was Mackay and Tini, Mark Boucher played down there, Robin Peterson. So we had a fairly decent side, and it was good to be part of that as well.
And then the opportunity to coach South Africa came in 2005. You took over from Ray Jennings. Was it a surprise to you? And in terms of the actual getting a international job, can you just give us a little insight? Do you have to go for an interview? Do you get approached? Do you have to provide a presentation in front of a panel? How does it work? Can you give us a little insight?
Yeah, I can, and I think it's progressed certainly from that time. But it was in 2005, and to be fair, I was still very young in the coaching game. So I was only 2005. I was only 30. Just turned 36. So I was still very young, and the South African job came up at that point in time. I'd coached South African A. I'd had a taste of working with those type of players, and I kind of just fancied it. But I kind of thought, listen, I'm a way outsider here, but I'm going to throw my name in the hat. And I got down to I think there was 4 or 5 that were interviewed by a panel. There was a panel, the CEO. There was a couple of independent guys on it. I remember Andrew Hudson sat on the panel. And I was actually the last guy to be interviewed, because as the CEO, Gerald Majula, would say at the time, that they thought that they'd interview me last because they saw a future for me, but it might not have been at that particular time. And I remember going in there very confident of what I wanted to achieve, and I went in with a presentation, which was ahead of its time in 2005, where not other guys hadn't. They'd walked in and had a sort of question and answers. And because I knew South African cricket so well at that time, having worked in the minor provinces, the academy, the A side, I came with a structure, I came with a plan, and I came with a goal. And that goal was how we were going to get to where we wanted to be in 3 years. And players we needed, brand of cricket that I wanted to play based on what I had known and gleaned through the system. So I actually had a hell of a great interview, and it ended up going on for ages because they just wanted to know more and more and more. And I walked out of there and thought, geez, that was interesting because, that was very interesting because it was kind of went better than I thought it would. And I got on a plane from Johannesburg to fly to Port Elizabeth, where we were actually playing a 2020 semi-final. So the next day. And I remember waking up, it was about 6:30 in the morning, and my phone rang. And it was Gerald Majola, who was the CEO of South African Cricket. He said, look, I've got something to discuss with you. I've actually flown to PE as well for the game tonight. Can we have breakfast at 7:30? So I thought, well, this is interesting. Not for 1 minute did I think I was going to get offered the job. I thought that maybe there was something in the pipeline that they wanted me to do. And I remember walking into the breakfast, and he had the breakfast in like a separate room. I thought, no, this is getting more and more interesting. And I sat down. He just said, congratulations, you've blown us away. We like your vision. We're backing you in. And it was incredible. And then we went and won the semi-final, which capped the day off.
What was the vision that you actually had? And you mentioned the plan that you wanted to take South Africa, the 3-year plan. What was it? It must be more than just take it to number one, test and one day side. Can you give us a little bit more depth in terms of what you, the vision you had?
Well, yeah, South African cricket was just floundering just a little bit at that time. There was a little bit of uncertainty. We saw Eric Simons come in and then lose his job, and then Ray Jennings went in a sort of interim capacity. There was a very young captain in Graham Smith at that time, and it was pretty clear that, I mean, the likes of Sean Pollock and Lance Kluisners and guys like that had done an exceptional job, and Sean Pollock was amazing for South Africa. But it was at a time where I felt we needed to progress the team. So I remember thinking that we needed to progress. Obviously, transformation was really an important factor at that time. So I had kind of earmarked who the best, and I hate the terminology, but who the best players of color were, because that was quite an important factor in building your team. So
there was a quota system in place, wasn't there?
At that point in time, it was almost an unofficial quota system. So it was unofficial, but there was an understanding it could never be an all-white team.
Yeah.
So it was really important that you built and the young players of color that were coming. I mean, Makai Ntini was then a legend. You had your Herschel Gibbs was a legend. You had the young Hashim Amla. You had Ashwell Prince. Yeah, JP Dumini was in the background there. There was enough bowlers, the Mondis on Dekis. So there was enough talent. It was just kind of how we built that team. So I had that whole plan of who we were going to use, how we were going to sort of not phase out, because that's a poor word, but how we were going to refresh the team with young talents and bring in the young players and build the team around a young captain in Graham Smith. Obviously, your world-class player in Jacques Kallis. Herschel Gibbs still had a couple of years left there. The Makai Ntinis, how Sean Pollock was still a factor. So we were going to use that and then phase in the likes of your Dale Steins, your Morne Morkels, your JP Duminis, your Hashim Amlas, guys that then sort of came into the team within my first 6 months. And then we just built that team. And the didn't even mention AB de Villiers, who at that point was also a young guy that we brought into that system. And then it was so nice to watch them grow, and just because I mean they were always, I mean, Armler, De Villiers, Steyn, Morkel, you know, you put them with a Callis, a Smith, a Boucher, a Gibbs, they just developed so quickly and so well that they, you know, we just almost by fluke just became this incredible team. But it was really important that I followed the exact guidelines that I'd put in place to ultimately achieve that end goal for us.
And then, as you said, in 2005, you've got a young side just all coming together. A tough baptism of fire. That Australia coming up against that great Australia team.
Yeah, that was a tough baptism of fire for us because, and that was a tour we had to have. And I say it was a tour we had to have because at that point in time, we were still working with a lot of the senior players as well. So we kind of went through that tour and then made the significant changes afterwards. And I remember Graham and I sat there, and I remember it was in Perth. I remember it so well, and this is why I was so I had so much respect for the CEO Gerald Majola at the time. We had had a tough tour. We'd spoken it up, and we had gone in there all bravado, and you know, we're going to come and we're going to beat them, and we're going to take them on, and we're going to take them on at their brand of cricket. Very young, immature captain and coach, and we got our butts severely kicked over there. And I'll never forget sitting in Perth. It was right at the end of the tour. We were on the back end of the one-day series, and the Gerald Majola flew over. Graham and I were under pressure. Gerald Majola flew over and to see us, and so he's flown from Joburg to Perth, and he's taken us out for dinner. And we've sat there. He said, "Right, guys," he said, "I'm backing you in. You've got my support for the next 3 years. How are we going to get ourselves to number one in the world?" And that's when the plan that I had, we just sort of unraveled, and we unraveled the new look team, the new look game plan. Graham and I then sat in that lounge in Perth in 2006 and worked out in our minds how exactly we were going to come back in 2008, 2008, 2009, we were going to come back, and how we were going to come back and beat Australia. And that formulated the plan with our young players. And then for us to culminate in that 2008 year where we became the first side to win in England, we became the first side to win in Australia, and we drew with India in India in that same year, all away from home tours, to get to that point where we won and became that first South African side to do that was a real sense of achievement for both of us. Yeah.
Going into that 2007 World Cup, was there an expectation within the team that you would go far? And
there was.
Expected that you would win?
Yeah, without a doubt. We knew Australia were obviously a very, very good team. I mean, there were a lot of good teams, but Australia was kind of clearly, even though we were number one, Australia's sort of tournament play probably made them the favourites. But we were confident. We thought we were going to go there. We had no doubt in our mind that we were going to be competing at the back end of that competition. And if things went our way, we were going to win it. We were that confident because we did go into it as the number one ranked side.
But then the semi-final against Australia, disappointment.
We just didn't get out the stables in St. Lucia.
And then there's a lot of criticism, unfair criticism. Some may say that come the big game, South Africa just can't get over the line. How would you respond to that?
Look, I think the more South Africa don't get over the line, the bigger issue it becomes. And that kind of started because, you remember the 2000 and when was it? Was the 1999
World Cup? 99 World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, where they didn't get over the line because of the run out, where they were South Africa at that point was the best team in the world.
Yeah.
They should have won that World Cup. That was when they were ready to win a World Cup. And it was almost they didn't get over the line there. And then 2003 was the famous DRS, where they got the DRS wrong. It just all seemed to go wrong for South African World Cups. And so that kind of, the choke emanated from 1999, and then couldn't read the DRS in 2003. And then we supposedly choked in the semi-final in the big game in 2007. And then that's a stigma then that's just carried on with the team.
How important is the relationship with the skipper, Graham Smith, during your time in South Africa? How important was that?
That was massively important. Graham and I shared the same philosophies. We kind of backed each other. Graham's a very strong character. There's an aura about him in the dressing room. He allowed me to take charge off the field, and then he dominated and took charge on the field during match time. So it was a really good partnership, and one that still holds today. We're still very firm friends and in contact a lot. But I think the thing that made it work as well, that we were both very young, as I said to you, in 2005, and in that he was a young captain, I was a very young coach, and we actually grew together. We grew along. So we were young and didn't know where we were going, but we found a method and grew and became better coach and better captain through those years, and we trusted each other implicitly. So it was a wonderful time.
This is just more like a general question. In terms of who do you think, from your perspective, who is in charge of the side? Is it the captain or the coach? Because a lot of people say different things. From your
and that's an interesting, and that's a very interesting question. And ultimately, in cricket, the captain runs the team on the field. So you kind of got to think that you've got to, as a coach, you've got to build and give the captain everything that he kind of wants and needs. So the role of the coach now is definitely more, I'm not saying more important, but certainly a hell of a lot more significant now in terms of the amount of control that you have, because the coaches now we've seen become selectors, and so with that becomes not a power, because you don't want power, but a kind of control. But it's still very important for the coach and captain to work together. And ultimately, I still think, and you still defer back to the captain, because he's the ones that I'm in charge of the preparation. I'm giving him his charges. I'm signing off the day before, saying, there we go. The guys are prepared. The guys are ready. Now it's up to you. And then ultimately, it's up to the captain to make it work.
In 2010, when the end came with South Africa, was it disappointment for you, or did you feel that was your time?
No, that was my time. And it kind of, I just signed a new 2-year contract as well when we beat when we won in Australia. I got another year on my contract, and I felt that the year after, though, 2009, we stagnated as a team. And you kind of know it's your time as a coach. I think there's a shelf life with coaches, and for how we operated, that team wasn't going to change much, because those young players had progressed and progressed and progressed, and had become world-class players. And everything I tried to give them, or had given them, was they'd heard it all before. So I needed to move on. So with a year left on my contract, we kind of mutually decided that it was the right time, and it was the right time without a doubt.
And then you moved to Australia, the opportunity to work for Western Australia. How did that all come about?
Well, it was very interesting. The day after I resigned, I remember I flew up to Joburg, resigned, and then I went up and played in a golf day kind of 2 days later. And I just finished the round. Actually, Graham Smith was changing with me. We'd just finished the round, and I got a call from Graham Wood from the Wacker, who was the CEO of Western Australia. He said, "Look, we're not. Tom Moody's going to go at the end of the year. We're looking for a coach. Are you interested?" I said, "Flip, I'm very interested. we had always traveled to Australia. I'd been on a couple of tours there. We loved Perth as a family. Our family had always come out, and they loved Perth. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. So things progressed, and I think a month later, I was in Perth preparing for the new season with Western Australia.
And then the back end of 2011, you get the Australian job.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, that was incredible, and a lot of that was on the back end of the tour that we had into Australia. Where because it was so successful, I'd done a fair amount of media. I'd built up relationships. They kind of looked at us as a team and kind of tried to copy of it. Everybody tried to copy Australia, but they sort of looked at us and said, geez, we need to have a look at how South Africa are doing things. And so I sort of went into Australia with a degree of credibility not often given to foreign coaches in Australia. So yeah, I was very fortunate to get that Australian job. But that was a very detailed process that we went through to get that job. It was a very detailed process. You talk about how the processes had moved on. That one there was psychometric testing. There was the whole lot before you finally got to a group, and then you had to do a presentation. That was one of the prerequisites. So yeah, it was interesting, and then got the job, which was too soon. Certainly, I think I didn't understand the Australian system well enough. I didn't understand the players well. I didn't know the players well enough, and which was kind of the sell point for me in my presentation. It was kind of, Australia cricket was on a downer, and they just lost. They just had the Argus review, and more power was going to come to it. So my whole presentation there was around an unblinkered vision of Australian cricket, because I actually didn't know the system. I didn't know the structures. I had no baggage. I had no allegiance to any party. So I kind of sold myself along those lines.
Yeah, you mentioned the Argus review. You had like legends of Australian cricket, Mark Taylor, Steve Waugh in that kind of process. I think the head coach now became a selector. Am I correct in saying the skipper had more of a voice? Again, was it difficult?
It was difficult.
And how would you sum up the start? You mentioned New Zealand. You won an ODI series against West Indies. So initially, again, the side was developing. You had initial success?
Yeah, we did. We had a good set. And people forget the first test series was New Zealand. And then we had the home series 4 tests with India. We won it 4-0 and played amazing cricket. And again, it was kind of developing that a team. If I look back in hindsight, I came in and kind of used the blueprint I used with South Africa, with Australia, when I should have probably come in and just sat back a little bit and just watched, and just because I didn't know the structure, I didn't know the people, I've formed a very close allegiance with Michael Clark, and we kind of moved on without me knowing the dynamic that existed within the team. So I should have, in hindsight, just sat back and just watched a little bit more before I made my assessments and decisions.
And then, also I've got to mention this, your time with Australia is known for this, what many term as this homework gate. So you're in India, you lose the first 2 test matches. There was a little break between the games. You asked the players to go away, think about how they're going to play spin, am I correct in saying, and to come back to you, or how they're going to play on those wickets, and come back to you with their views and how you're going to you'll structure your training around that. Am I correct? Is that all correct? And a word on that whole scenario period.
It was, if I look back, it was a tough period. That things had started to spiral just off just a little bit in terms of where we had gone as a team. We needed to regroup. We had brought some very good young players, David Warner, the late Phil Hughes, Matthew Wade, James Pattinson, Mitchell Stark. Those were all guys that were starting to come in and take over from the Michael Hussies, the Shane Watsons, the guys, the Brad Haddons. So it was kind of a change of an era. Nathan Lyon was just coming in, and I was trying to give them as much consistency as I could, and I felt we needed just to pull things together, just a little bit in India. I felt I'd seen standards with the young boys coming in. They were, cock a hoop, but there was things like being late for their physio appointments, not really, treating the masseuse with a bit of contempt. And I felt at that point in time, we just needed to pull it all together, and we needed to, this was our time to recalibrate how we wanted to move forward, because these young players were going to be the future of Australian cricket. So it was. We'd lost the first test match. We lost the second test match in Hyderabad. I was in the Hyderabad change room, and it was kind of in my debrief. I kind of just sat there and said to the guys out there, I said, look, guys, give me 3 points. All I want is, we got 3 days off. Give me 3 points how you think we can progress as a team, and give me 3 points how you think you can progress as an individual, in terms of how can we as a support staff support your game over this period of time to make you better come the third test match. And what I'll do is I'll take all that information, I'll sit with our coaches, and we'll structure our training sessions and make them very individual based on what you guys think you need in terms of being in the best space. So all it was kind of, and that was it. It was kind of a reflection where you wanted, over those 3 days, you wanted the guys to go back to their rooms and maybe spend half an hour having a look in the mirror and going, right, this is how I want to play, this is what I want to do. That was all it was. The intention was very good, and the intention was very poor.
The response you got from most of the players, you did get a response from most of the players, but the four that forgot, and then the subsequent dropping of those 4 players, was that decision yours, or was that influenced by others? Make a little bit of. Well, how do you talk about that?
It fell ultimately on me, because I was in that position. If I was going to make the decision, I had the call. But it was kind of interesting how that, because at the end of the day, I wasn't that worried. Like, those 4 players forgot. All I was going to do was I was going to remind them that day when we arrived in Mohali, hey guys, just remember your keys. And they would have gone, yes, sorry coach, I'll get them to you tonight. But
so the 4 players were just James Pattinson, Usman Khawaja, Shane Watson, Mitchell Johnson.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But on the plane, sitting on the flight, I was sitting next to Michael Clark. The manager was next to us, Gav Dovey, and Eddie Cowan was sitting just in front of us. And I've got, as I say, some great stuff from it. And Eddie Cowan just happened to turn around, and he said, "Hey, coach, how's it all going with those things?" I said, "Oh, it's great." I said, I need 4 to come in. And with that, the manager said to me, "Oh, who's the 4?" And I said who the 4 was. And then with that, they've gone, "Oh, Sherman, that's not very good. What are we going to do about it?" We're in my mind at that point, I was just going to remind them, nudge them as I got off the plane. It hadn't become a massive issue for me at that time. And then, obviously, it became common knowledge that those 4 players hadn't done it. So you had Michael, you had the manager, I had some of the support staff all saying, "So what are we going to do? What are the consequences?" And then I'm suddenly sitting flip, and I'm sitting in a pickle, because, right, what do we do now? Because clearly they haven't done what I'd asked, but I didn't think it was that big a deal at that point in time. Had they not done it by the first practice, it then became a massive issue. So it became a no-win situation for me. And in some aspects, I wonder what would have happened to my Australian coaching career if Eddie on the plane hadn't turned over and said, "Hey, coach, how have the players responded?" And if I had just said, oh, it's been fantastic, thanks, Ed, and I would have said to Michael and the manager, I'll share it all with you, and not divulge the information, how different the outcome would have been. So I guess that was it. And then it progressed. So then I got the whole support staff together and said, right, what do we do? And I'll never forget, there was a manager, a guy in our support staff who said, well, what would Rafa Benitez do? Because he had been the doctor at Liverpool. And he said, well, Rafa Benitez would have them training with the reserves. They wouldn't be allowed close to us. And then a couple of the support staff and everybody had gone, yeah, now that's a good idea. There was no fundamental disciplinary formula, for what we wanted to do. And I'll never forget, one of my support staff still said, right, this is your chance to put a line in the sand and tell the players that they've been out of line and we're serious about how we want to go forward. And he said, so act now, otherwise, do you want to be known as the man who changed Australian cricket, or do you want to be known as Mickey Mouse? And I'll never forget those words.
Wow.
And then I've got out and gone, well, shit, what do I do now? What do I do? Because the whole support staff have eventually got to, this has got to be significant. Because if we find them money, it doesn't mean anything. We've got to show the rest of Australia we are very, very serious about how we're progressing our culture. So I did it, and then of course it just became chaos.
And then the end came 2013. The Ashes series was in 2013. Did it disappoint you that you never led Australia into an Ashes series?
Yeah, definitely, Neil. That was something that when I got there and when I was offered the Australian job, the first thing that went into my mind was, unbelievable. As a South African, I'm going to experience an Ashes. So it was disappointing that I never got to that.
And then you coached in various 2020 leagues in South Asia. You get the opportunity in 2016 to then become head coach of Pakistan. Again, How did that process come about? And from a cultural perspective, see, Pakistan cricket is a religion. In terms of buying into the culture, the religion aspect, how was the whole experience initially when you first got the job?
Oh, let me say first up that was, obviously, other than the sort of formative years and the culmination with South Africa, those 3 years were certainly the best 3 years of my coaching career so far. I absolutely enjoyed it because it was so different. So I had coached Karachi Kings in the PSL, and I kind of have always been intrigued with Pakistan cricket. There's always a stigma with Pakistan cricket. So I'd only coached against them, and it always seemed to be a little bit of a shambles. There was always a controversy here and a controversy there, and you saw players not fighting. And so, but then you saw them string together some amazing performances. So I'd always been very interested in Pakistan cricket. So I got the gig to go and coach Karachi Kings in the PSL. And we had Mohammed Amir in our side at that time, who was Imad Wasim. There was a couple of the Pakistan players at that point in my first year. And I kind of really enjoyed the whole aspect. I loved working with the players because they just wanted to suck you dry in terms of information. So I kind of got interested. And then the PSL finished, and I went back to Perth, and Pakistan subsequently went to the Asia Cup, where they performed very poorly. They went to the 2020 World Cup, performed very poorly. And at the end of that, there was the big issue. Waka Yunus resigned, and amid again another massive controversy. And I got a phone call out the blue from the guy that was actually the director of the PSL. He said, would you like to coach Pakistan? I said, yeah, fantastic. I'd love to. He said, okay, well, just send me your CV and just put a little business plan together on how you're going to run Pakistan. So I had my sort of template, if you like. So I wrote probably 3 or 4 pages, put my CV in. I sent it away. He phoned me the next day, said, "This is great, excellent, thank you very much, brilliant." And then didn't hear a thing for like a month. It was kind of, I needed to send the CV in like yesterday, and then didn't hear anything for a month. And then out the blue, I was at a dinner party. My phone rings. It's a +92 number. Oh, Pakistan number. Pick it up. They say, "Congratulations, you're the Pakistan coach." I said, well, like what? Can we just discuss this maybe tomorrow? So again, then tomorrow the CEO or the chief operating officer at the time, Subhan Ahmed, phoned me, said, "This is the deal. Are you happy?" I said, yeah. Can we look at this? Can we look? Bang, within 20 minutes, I had the deal signed. I had the contract delivered the next day. I signed it, and they said, "Right, when can you start? Can you get you tomorrow?" I said, "Well, hang on. No, I've waited a month. I can't just put my life on hold." So I said, "Give me 3 weeks. I'll get everything sorted out." Because at that point in time, we were very close to getting our Australian passport. So I needed to have another 2 weeks in Australia, and at that time we would have had our ceremony, and I would then have become an Australian passport holder. So I needed to do that. I couldn't then be leaving the country for another job. So we waited the 2 weeks, boom, got it, and the next thing I was in Lahore, and then there I was, and sort of trying to develop a plan to coach Pakistan.
And then 2017, you win the Champions Trophy. How was that? You beat arch rivals India in the final. Something that was just historic in Pakistan cricket.
Well, it was amazing because that whole period there was quite amazing, because I had come in and I came in hard because I felt Pakistan cricket needed a firmer hand. So it was a lot firmer hand than, for want of a better word, coaching the Western country. I felt, and I watched. I learned from Australia. I watched how people operated. Obviously, there was a massive cultural shift. So I needed to understand it. I needed to understand the culture. I needed to understand the religion aspect. I needed to understand what made these players tick before I actually put together what I wanted to do. We went straight from winning the test in Dominica straight to England for the Champions Trophy. And we got there as the number 8 ranked side. And we ended up playing India in the first game and got absolutely hammered at Edgbaston. And this was, I still remember seeing the press conference, and the hostility was, you can imagine, India, Pakistan, you know the rivalry. The hostilities in that press conference were amazing. And I still remember the words I said, "We saw the difference between the number 8 ranked side and the number 1 ranked side. It was men against boys." And that kind of reverberated through the media. It was men against boys, which didn't go down that well in the Pakistan media, but that was the truth in terms of how I saw it. And I'll never forget the next day, Pakistan cricket, crisis meeting with the chairman. You kind of think we're going to get back to Lahore and we're going to get sacked, because that's just the history of Pakistan cricket. And a funny thing happened. The next game was South Africa. And it was a game I always look forward to. I always look forward to playing South Africa. And we had prepared so well. The first game, I didn't get the selection. My selection for the first game was a defensive selection against India. And I'll never forget, it was a hell of a good chat in the dressing room after the Indian game. But I remember saying to Sarfraz, "Stuff that, Safi. We are going to now take the attacking option. The young boys, we've got nothing to lose. This is where we stand. We're number 8. We know that. Let's give the young boys every opportunity to go out there and perform and play." Obviously, based around, we still had Azhar Ali playing, Mohammad Hafiz, Shoaib Malik, Sarfraz Ahmed. You guys, and then Mohammad Amir. But Mohammad Amir was still young in terms of international cricket at that time. Said, you guys are the pillars. But now we're going to put the fuckers amons. We're going to let fuckers amon go out and just play. I want to see Shadab Khan come on, and we're not going to tell Shadab Khan to control the run rate, Saf. We're going to tell Shadab Khan to run in and take wickets. We're going to allow Hassan Ali to search. We want Hassan Ali to bowl Yorkers, bounces, and use his pace to get people out. And we then came with the tactic of using Imad Wasim up front, left arm spin, particularly against South Africa, used wicket. We're going to use Imad Wasim. So we're going to go with 2 spinners and 3 quicks, and we're going to have very specific roles. And we just got on a roll. And it was amazing to see. We beat South Africa. We had to go to Cardiff to beat Sri Lanka to qualify for a semi-final, won that. And with every win, you could just see the guys get 10 feet taller and 10 feet taller. And then we ended up playing England, who in England are insurmountable. But we've got this young team who are sort of finding their way, and we go and we obliterate England and Cardiff. We absolutely obliterated them. We played the perfect game. And then we get on the bus, and our mantra had always been, I always have a mantra, and my mantra there was always, we want to go to London, because we played our warm-up games in Cardiff and Birmingham. We played our first 2 games in Birmingham and then went to Cardiff. So we had never played in London. We'd never gone to the Oval. So I said, guys, we want to go to London. And I'll never forget, we won that semi-final, and the guys have all run in the dressing room and all shouted, "We're going to London," and you could just see the actual confidence grow with those players. And we went, and then, I mean, it was a phenomenal final. We put together the perfect game. And the interesting thing is, and it's amazing how things just conspire for you. It was, we lost the toss, and we were going to bat. We ended up we were going to bowl. We lost the toss. India always want to chase. They stuck us in, and with them sticking us in, what it allowed to do was we got to the ground, and it was a case of shackles off, boys. We have the public and in Pakistan are immensely proud of you guys anyway. We've actually got nothing to lose here, because if we go back having lost, albeit to India, but having as the number 8 ranked side got ourselves to the final, you guys are heroes. And imagine what could happen if we win it. Let's dream big. And the guys just went and played with an absolute gay abandon and a freedom that I've never seen before. And we ended up playing the perfect game, and number 8 ranked team, we go home with the Champions Trophy. It was amazing. It was a great memory.
You talk about giving young players their head. It's known in a lot of South Asian teams the respect the youngsters have for their elder players. Was that mindset change that was the key, especially the victory in that tournament?
It kind of, Neil. That's a good question, because the South Asian players, or the Asian players that I've worked with, so the Pakistan boys, and I see it with the Sri Lankan boys, the respect for the elders, the respect for the seniors, and the respect that they have is incredible. It is such a good value to have, except on the cricket field. So I always tried to get the guys to be more expressive. Like, I wanted to say, I remember sitting in the change room and saying to Baba Azam, so if Mohammed, and Baba Azam's a very, very young player at that point in time, if Mohammed Hafiz runs you out, I expect when he comes in, I expect you to say, "Come on, Hafi, what were you doing? Why were you not running?" No. I could never do that. I could never do that. He's my senior. I said, but guys, I remember, and this was part of our discussion at the end of, the best dressing rooms in the world are dressing rooms that challenge each other in the workplace. They will challenge each other, but that they trust each other so much. So when they walk out the dressing room, that's all done. It's all gone and forgotten. That's like a mature work conversation. And then you go out, and then you can have the respect levels, which I think are so important. And it was one thing that I absolutely adored about Pakistan was the culture, the values, the family values, and the respect that came with that. I found amazing. I wanted them, though, just to be toughen up in the change room, and it was certainly not like a Western team, but we kind of got there, because the young players then sort of grew into into very good players. And when they grew into good players, they got a lot more confident.
And then how would you sum up the 2019 World Cup? Um, Obviously, just prior to that, you come over to England as well, play a load of ODI games, didn't go your way, but then come the tournament, you actually then get the victory over England, but you didn't quite make it through to the semis. How would you sum up the tournament, the preparation, etc., going into it?
Yeah, our preparation was very good, and the things that I do again was we ended up, because we lost, we had one rained out game. So because we lost to England 4-0 in the series prior to the World Cup, and I think we played some outstanding cricket in that series. In every one of those games, we got over 300. There were 2 games we got over 350. So that for us was a massive stepping stone as a team. So I thought we weren't taken apart in that series, but I'll take you back a month, and we lost a 5-0 to Australia in the UAE. But I made a decision to play with our second team and to give all the players that were going to go to the World Cup, or virtually all the players that were going to go to the World Cup, that tour off, so that they could be fresh going into that England tour and then into the World Cup. So we lost there to a decent Australian side, but we, there were 2 games that got quite close where we should have won, didn't get over the line. But the development of a lot of our fringe players in that tour was quite significant. But with the Pakistan public, we lost 5-0, and then we gone and lost 9-0 to England. We put ourselves going into that World Cup under a massive amount of pressure. It was always, what's the longest run that Pakistan had been on without a win? Bearing in mind, we played some good one-day cricket before the Australian series. So I would have mixed and matched the teams, but I probably wouldn't have played a second team because it put us ultimately under pressure. People talk about that World Cup, and people say, and it still rankles me because people say we had a disaster. We didn't have a disaster. We finished tied 4th. We lost out on net run rate, and we beat the 2 teams that actually played in the final.
And then you talked earlier about every coach having their shelf life. But during this, at the end of your Pakistan stint after the World Cup, did you feel that you had more to give, or was that the right time?
Yeah. No, I felt I had more to give. I definitely felt I had more to give. And that's why I was publicly, I've said it, I was disappointed because I felt that we had built a team. I'd built a young team that was ready. And I certainly wanted another 18 months. And another 18 months would have taken me to the 2020 World Cup. And then I think that would have been the end of my term with Pakistan. But we had gone, we had started at number 9 in 2020 cricket when I started there. We got ourselves to number 1. We won 11 series in a row. I wanted the right, and I felt I deserved the right to take that 2020 team to the 2020 World Cup. So I was disappointed when they didn't renew our contract.
And then the opportunity to coach Sri Lanka came up. Again, how did that conversation? Who approached you, etc.?
It's bizarre how things work out, because the day it was decided that our contract wasn't going to be renewed with Pakistan, I got a call from the day after. I got a call from the Sri Lankan CEO, who said, because they were having their issues with Hatra Singh at the moment, at that point in time, they had sidelined him and they had an interim coach in place. They were then going into a series with New Zealand, and he phoned me. He said, "Can I come straight from Lahore to Colombo and start with Sri Lanka?" I said, "Look, I can. Yeah, I'm ready." And then he phoned me back later in the day and said, "Look, that can't happen, unfortunately, because they still got to settle. I can't come in as a head coach because there's a legal issue going on with Hatra Singh, with the present coach. So could I just wait a bit?" So I said, "Yeah, sure. I'm prepared to take over whenever you want."
How excited are you about the Sri Lankan project?
Very excited. It looks, the Sri Lankan project is exactly like the Pakistan project when I started. It is exactly, it's got exactly the same feel. A lot of good young talent. We need to get some structure. We've got to find a brand, and we need to give the players some confidence that they're going to be not, excuse me, not just discarded at the first opportunity, that we were actually going to give them an opportunity to go out and play. So I've put all that sort of building blocks in place, and that's going to take us a while. And we sort of started nasty. You know, we won the one-day series 3-0 with the West Indies, albeit we lost the 2020s. We still got a bit of work to do in that. We won a very tough test series in Zimbabwe, and I say tough, the conditions that we played in, that's the flattest wickets I've ever seen. So we had to play tough, hard, disciplined cricket for 5 days to get a positive result there. So I've seen things start progressing nicely. And then, you know, it's all been cut short. But I'm very excited by this opportunity, and I know I can make a significant difference.
And we talked about vision before. Vision for this side for the next 3 years.
Yeah, obviously, vision remains the same. It's vision's everything that I want it to be. I feel we have the potential to go a long way with the side. I always say you've got to give the players the roots to go and the wings to fly. And we've started to put those little benchmarks in place with these guys, and I'm confident we'll get a good outcome. We'll get a good result down the line. We've just got to be patient.
And then some just general coaching questions just to finish. How, in terms of the different formats, T20, ODIs, and the longer format, how difficult is it in terms of preparation to kind of, you know, compartmentalize all three formats and put the structures in place and the training programs, etc., for you as a coach?
No, look, I've got a very good support staff. We work very closely as a support staff together, and we've got almost a blueprint. So whether we're playing 2020, whatever, we know exactly how we want to train them, when we want to train them, and the personnel that swap in and out. So it's a very easy swap for us now.
And then, say for example, you've got for a side that you're coaching, and you've got your batting coach. If a player who's, for example, struggling with form, and he's worked with a different coach, you know, maybe through his junior years, would you be okay for him to go back and work with that coach, or would it be one where you'd want him to work with the batting coach that's in place with your team, for example?
No, I've never had any issue with players going back and players that they've, or coaches they've got confidence in. I think is very good for them, provided I will then communicate with that coach, because it's important that our messages stay exactly the same and we don't confuse the batsman. So I'm all for that. But it needs to be structured. It can't just be willy-nilly. We've both got to buy into the same message that we're giving to this player. Otherwise, we're confusing him.
And then just to end on, what makes a good coach?
I think you've got to be yourself, and you can't be somebody that you're not. I think you've got to be structured. I think you've got to be organized. I think you have to be. You're like a salesman. You've got to sell a philosophy and a goal to the players, and you've got to then, during the tough times and the good times, stay true to your philosophy and your end goal, because that's the way you build those trusts with the players. And once you've built that trust and you stay on that goal together, and players see some semblance of them become better players, and an end goal that you're working to by having some success, that momentum just rolls. And that's when you get the confidence, you get the trust. And once you've got the confidence and trust of that dressing room, the world's your oyster, and anything can be achieved.
Amazing, Mickey. What an insight. Really appreciate your time. And once we do get cricket back, all the best with your role with Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Neil. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every minute of this. Thank you.
Perfect. So Neel Khagram, Cricket Last Stories, Mickey Arthur. Thank you.